Breaking news, greater sage-grouse populations have reached critical levels, especially in Saskatchewan. As mentioned in an article by Philip K. Rose and his colleagues, these grouse inhabit only 7% of their former range and are at immediate risk of extinction. But first, what are greater sage-grouse?
Found in the United States, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, these birds are known for their elaborate courting rituals, which happen on breeding grounds called leks. As you may be able to tell from their names, these large grouse are dependent on sagebrush, a plant that comprises an important part of their diet and that they need to survive. In other words, if there's no sagebrush, there's no sage-grouse.
In Saskatchewan, these sagebrush-filled breeding grounds have been decimated, with only 2 leks remaining in the province, a fact made clear in an article by Autumn Watkinson and her colleagues.
Threats to the greater sage-grouse include diseases like West Nile virus and collisions with power lines and fences. However, the primary threat is habitat loss caused by agricultural conversion of grassland into cropland, as well as oil and gas plants and roads. At such a dire risk of extinction, or at least of extirpation in Saskatchewan, what is being done to protect these birds? Well, many of the conservation efforts are happening in the Grasslands National Park, where the 2 remaining leks in Saskatchewan are found. The park and the University of Alberta have partnered to reverse habitat loss by planting over 9,000 sagebrush plants in sage-grouse habitat, as well as marking and removing fences to stop collisions, and working with SAS Power to remove overhead power lines in critical greater sage-grouse habitat. The greater sage-grouse are also protected under the Species at Risk Act, the Canadian National Parks Act, the Saskatchewan Wildlife Act, and the Alberta Wildlife Act. This means they are closely monitored and protected, and it is illegal to harm the species or its established nesting sites.
That's all for today on these beautiful birds. Tune in after the break to learn more about human-coyote coexistence in urban areas.